outset of my remarks.
Vesayetten demokrasiye,
From
milli irade
tutelage to
sempozyumunun
democracy,
ülkemiz,
Symposium on National Will is why we are here today, and may this symposium be auspicious for our country, our nation, and for humanity at large. Taking this opportunity, I would also like to thank the Minister of Justice and all the relevant authorities, as well as all the participants for being here with us here today. All throughout the course of history, many types of administration took place. And amongst these administrations, regardless of the methodology used, the superiority of national will has always been of great importance. In modern democracies, in Europe, lengthy and bloody trials and tribulations took place until we reached this understanding of administration. Democracy put a stamp on the last century, and democracy encompasses different practices. It's a set of wide range of practices and approaches, and Turkey was one of the first countries to participate in this process. Right after the War of Independence, a new type of administration was adopted, which was based on national will, but actually it took us a while longer to reach true democracy or to establish true democracy. After we adopted the multi-party system, true democracy started to take hold in Turkey, but throughout this process we did experience many trials and tribulations. Let's now go back to 1950 and take a look at our recent history. From 1950, we would see that our democracy experience is full of coups and tarnishings of tutelage. Many quarters, many political engineers, many social engineers exerted pressure on the national will, and many plots and schemes were orchestrated. And we paid a very high price. We paid a very high price in terms of democracy. Many of our sons and daughters lost their lives as a result. And this process, this period should never be forgotten, and the necessary lessons should be drawn. The culture, the values, the history of our nation are of great importance. Some people almost waged war against these, and we will never forget the methods that they utilized. There is one thing that everyone should acknowledge in Turkey without any exceptions. In Turkey, up until today, many coups were implemented or orchestrated, but none of them succeeded. No plot or scheme of tutelage was ever legitimate, was ever national in spirit, was never innocent, or was never full of merit. Every coup tried to complete on what the previous coup failed short of accomplishing. And what we call tutelage is actually the order orchestrated by coup plotters, coup implementers, through bureaucracy and through the arm of civilian politics. Turkey is described by some people as a country that should not be left to its own devices, and these people have tried every trick in the book to control Turkey. But on the night of 15th of July, our nation exhibited great heroism, took a great stand, and stood against these dirty and bloody machinations of the past. Again, it was evident on that night that the nation will always stand in front of the tanks and weapons and the ammunitions of the coup implementers, and the international support of these coup implementers will will never work vis-a-vis this standing. Of course, tutelage can only prevail if the national will is curbed. On the night of 15th of July, we made a speech online on television, and we said that there is no power that is greater than the power of the nation, and we acknowledge no such greater power. In the last 2 centuries, our country went through many difficulties, and the Turkish nation went through many difficulties, and on the 15th of July, actually, the nation turned a new page and took ownership of its prosperity and of its future. Citizens from all segments of the society, public authorities, politicians, all raised their voices on the night of 15th of July. And these people will always be revered throughout the future. Scientific meetings of this kind are very important for our country in terms of understanding the long and winding road that Turkey has gone through. And it is important that we turn our learnings into messages for the future and lessons for the future. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, today is the 12th of September, and this date for all of us is significant, is not just one of the 365 days on the calendar. Exactly 40 years ago, on 12th of September in the morning, Turkey woke up to a coup d'etat, and on the streets there were tanks, and streets were blocked by soldiers, and again these soldiers were the sons of the nation. And this was a familiar catastrophe that was being experienced again. Yes, Turkey was exposed to yet another military coup d'etat when we were children, but generations before us also experienced such horrors. Namely in 1960, which was followed by a string of catastrophes that still plight us. When we were young, at the beginning of our youth, in 71 there was a memorandum, and this had certain political implications, and again this was etched on our minds as well. And when we were a bit older, we experienced the 12th of September coup, and it was incredibly bloody, and it inflicted such deep wounds on us, on our nation's memory, and it will never be forgotten. During the years after the coup, many people were imprisoned and subjected to torture, and prisons were turned into houses of torment, and many people were hanged from the gallows. And again, this created a great plight for the nation. But today, everyone knows that before the 12th of September coup, the country was polarized into political camps, and tens of people were killed on a daily basis, and none of them actually took place on their own. None of these incidents were natural events. All of these incidents were actually instigated to create the necessary framework for the coup d'etat, and they were a part of a conscience script. And at the time, there was an economic dire straits as well, and again, this paved the way for the upcoming coup. When the news of the coup made it to Washington, D.C., some people said, "Our boys did it." And this goes to actually reveal the dark power, the dark face behind the 12th of September coup. At the night of 15th of July, some people at the same places were hoping that their boys would do it, accomplish it in people's lives. 40 years is a very lengthy period, but in the memory of a society, it is quite brief. Some people sang praises for the 12th of September coup, and they always mention the constitutional referendum, and we need to make an assessment of that referendum based on the prevailing conditions at the time. People had no safety or security. People were finding it very difficult to make ends meet, and they could not stand against the coup. And the 12th of September regime implemented a constitutional referendum which was accepted. That doesn't go that does not go to tell us that it was a legitimate referendum. It just tells us that our people wanted to get over and done with that process as quickly as possible. Then we had elections in 1983, and the party championed by the coup implementers failed, and Mr. Özal's party succeeded in the end. And again, this was a message given by the electorate to the coup implementers. Certain people, especially according to themselves, try to come up with different interpretations and try to paint a different picture, but nevertheless, this was the most awful coup that we experienced as Turkey. Dear guests, the dark powers that laid the groundwork for 12th of September actually also planned for the post-coup period. Coup implementers hanged people from the leftist movement, from the right-wing movement, and they sowed the seeds of the problems that we are still trying to solve. The military regime crushed leftist groups, and for years Turkey was harmed by the PKK, and this was made possible through that move. Again, the military regime wanted to eradicate the accumulation achieved by right-wing groups, and now we can see that this was done to pave the way for the Fethullahist terrorist organization. And one example springs to mind, which I believe will explain many things. In a tiny village or town in Anatolia, a branch of the Turkish Students' Union was shut down by the coup implementers. And in an arcade, the branch was within an arcade in the city. The glasses were smashed and the furniture was smashed, and they were burned in the stoves and destroyed. And then the building of the branch that hosted books and magazines were also similarly burned down to ashes in the stoves in the building. And this was a huge attack on those who wanted to promote a sense of being Turkish, a sense of being national and local, and those who wanted to stop the burning of these books and magazines were actually imprisoned immediately. And this was not an ordinary act of vandalism or hatred towards books. The objective was to eradicate this precious memory, this precious consciousness that was actually transferred from one generation to another. And actually, when we look at the intellectual life in Turkey after the 12th of September coup, our intellectual life was never as rich as before, and the minds of the youth were actually subjected to ideological movements that were based on translations. The PKK created certain sentiments, and this created great divides, and the entire system was blocked as a result. Our nation's religious sensitivities and social solidarity consciousness and educational activities were actually left to the FETÖ movement. Our economy likewise suffered because of the crises that took place back to back. The Turkish economy was never allowed to thrive, and we were subjected to the practices of the IMF, and I experienced this personally. When we came into power, Turkey had $23.5 billion of debt to the IMF, and thankfully in 2013 we were able to service our debt entirely, and right now we do not have any outstanding debts to the IMF. But the main opposition party, they're saying that we should knock on the door of the IMF, that we should get money from the IMF so that the Turkish economy can thrive further. But that is not going to happen. We are a self-sufficient country, a self-sufficient nation, and we do not need the help of the IMF. The 12th of September coup also unilaterally opened the door of Greece becoming an EU member and a NATO member, and still today we are experiencing the negative implications of that in the Aegean, in the Eastern Mediterranean. And these are only some of the costs that we've had to pay because of the coup. And also recently, frequently some people are, discussing certain complicated issues. And again, these are mainly based on the seeds sown after the 12th of September coup. Our young people do not necessarily know about their culture, about their past, and they are reverting to immoral ways of living and immorality, and this is a negative heritage that the 12th of September coup sadly bestowed upon Turkey. Coups and tutelage wreaked havoc in our nation, in our history, but certain people always wanted to use these against Turkey. Is this problem only applicable to Turkey? No. After every coup in Turkey, our administrative system was rebuilt. And the most critical components of the system were actually based on facilitating future plots and schemes, not ensuring Turkey's safety and security. The only deeply rooted change that is not overshadowed by tutelage is actually the shift towards the executive presidential system that we accomplished altogether, and this upset certain people. For the first time in our history, our administrative system was changed directly thanks to the will of the nation in a very comprehensive manner, and we were able to pull this off as an administration. Of course, this was not easy. In the last 18 years, we have stood against all sorts of interventions and implemented a great deal of reforms, and we, in line with the expectations of our nation, restructured many public organizations, and we also answered the needs of our 81 provinces. But on the other hand, we built an advanced understanding of democracy. Thanks to these two propellers, Turkey rebounded with speed, and Turkey accomplished way more than what was accomplished before our administration in terms of basic infrastructure, in terms of services, from education to healthcare, from transportation to energy, from justice to security. In all different areas, Turkey made a giant leap by initiating several substantial investments in economy, from production to export, from growth to creating jobs, from access to financing to supporting entrepreneurship. Many critical steps were taken back to back during our post. In terms of freedoms, personal freedoms and liberties, we did away with bans, we upheld freedoms, democracy, and we did away with all the impediments that stood in the way of personal rights and liberties and democracy. In a well-balanced manner, Turkey was able to accomplish this giant leap, and this was also something that heralded in a new vision for our
Cumhur
country,
İttifakı
and
olarak
we
Sayın Bahçeli ve
are
arkadaşlarıyla
continuing to
el
do
ele
this
vererek
thanks to our alliance
gerçekleştirmeyi
with the
sağladık.
nationalist
Allah'a
movement
hamdolsun.
party. Thankfully, we
Demek
were
ki
able to do this. So it goes to
dayanışma
show that
olduktan
this is
sonra
actually
bu
possible.
milletin
As long as
yapamayacağı
there is
hiçbir şey
solidarity, there is nothing that this nation
artık
cannot
çok daha büyük
accomplish.
hedeflere
Now
ihtiyacımız
we
olduğunu
need
görelim.
even greater goals
Milletimizin
and
ortak
objectives,
hayallerinin
and
ifadesi
we
olan
need to
2023
make sure that the
hedeflerini
dreams of this
ortaya
nation manifests
Bu
themselves.
vizyonu
We have a vision for
2011 seçim
2023, the centenary
merkezine
of our
yerleştirerek
republic, and we
milletimize
put
artık
this
günü
on
değil,
the focal point of
geleceği
our
düşünen,
agenda.
çeyrek asır
Now our
sonrasının
nation
projelerini,
is thinking
planlarını
into the
yapan
future
bir
and
yönetime
making
sahip
plans
olduğu
and
mesajıdır.
creating projects for the next
Tabii bu
25
mesajı
years. Of course,
milletimizle
this message
birlikte
is
Türkiye'yi
something that we share deeply with our nation, and we should always stand against tutelage and coups, and of course those who believe in tutelage and coups did not like this. For the last 7 years, our country has been under attack, and we have been fighting against that, and this is the very reason why. Certain quarters are hoping to limit Turkey to the vicious cycle of tutelage and coups and thwart our efforts. Gezi incidents, 17th and 25th of December, operation and the activities of the terrorist organization from 15th of July to the recent developments in Eastern Mediterranean. Actually, all of these are part of the same plot. But thanks to God's help and thanks to the support of our nation, we have been frustrating these efforts, and we have been doing that for some time. These quarters prepared really studiously before the coup, and they shed the blood of our nation, and they wanted to implement many different plots and schemes, but we did, and we will continue to frustrate their plans. Of course, there is one thing that I need to underscore here, which is this. Now, to the south, we are struggling against the coalition forces. And there's a terrorist state that some people are hoping to establish. Where? In Syria, of course. And on the other side, you take a look at Libya, and we are confronted by the coup implementer Haftar and his forces, and unfortunately they have these mercenaries supported by the Abu Dhabi administration called Wagner, and together with these all, there is France, which is always on the news. And I do not wish to name names, but I feel that I have to do that because this person always speaks about me. He says that he has a problem with me, but not just not the Turkish nation. Mr. Macron, you will have more problems with me in the future. Time and time again, I've said this to you in the past, but you did not pay heed. You do not know anything about history. You do not know about the history of France. First and foremost, instead of meddling with the affairs of the Turkish nation and Turkey, take a look at the history of Africa, because the African history is almost like the French history. In Algeria, 1 million people were massacred by you. In Rwanda, 800,000 people were killed by you. You cannot teach us about humanity. That's the first thing that you should learn. And I've said this to him personally, and I said to him, you don't know about history, you need to study history first before you start preaching to us. What we do in Africa is we did not harm anyone in Africa. When we went to Africa, we only brought prosperity and humanitarian aid. We only did our best to help the people of Africa. That's what we did. Dear brothers and sisters, the powers of coup and tutelage are exemplified in these people. For many years, they fed and have thrived certain people, and because these people are no more, because Turkey now sticks to its national and local policies, they do not like it. They created a lot of havoc in Libya as well. They killed hundreds of thousands of people in Libya. This is what they did. How come they're now preaching to us about humanity? Why do they want to be in Libya? Because of oil. Because of oil reserves. Why did they go to African countries for diamond, for gold, for copper, for chrome? In my travels around Europe, African leaders would always come up to me and would always speak about these. And Turkey, our ancestors, our forebears, and likewise us, when we go to these territories, we only bring peace and we only extend a helping hand. Just like what we did during the COVID-19 period, we helped more than 150 countries across the world, some of which were African countries. Why did we support these countries? This was a humanitarian duty, a matter of conscience for us. That's why we did what we did. We were not more affluent than them, but nevertheless we gave and we will continue to give. Because this is what we were taught by our ancestors. And this is what we're going to do in the future as well. Mr. Macron, what have you done so far? Right now, you are in cahoots with certain people. What have they done and what are they continuing to do still? Turkey, with its parliament, with its presidency, with its judiciary, with its ministries, with its public authorities, with its troops and with its diplomacy, will make the rules of the game for itself and will continue to proceed on its path. Here we are today in Princess Islands in Istanbul and having this conference. And let's take a look at what Greece is doing in other islands in the region, in the Aegean, in the Eastern Mediterranean waters. They rely on the support of some people, and they use corvettes to surround the islands. They use zodiac boats to surround the islands. But this is not the right thing to do, because sooner or later you will be isolated. And when the time comes, sometimes you talk about the importance of being good neighbors. Then they should do what is expected of them. But as far as we're concerned, we will remain decisive. We make our own decisions and we implement these decisions with rigor, and we do not shy away from struggle any longer as Turkey. Yes, still in our country, there's a huge number of people who still yearn for tutelage and for coups, but I believe that our country will not let them ever again. Never ever in this country will tutelage and coups prevail and overshadow democracy and the will of the nation. And the gains of our nation and our country will always be upheld by us. All our future plans and programs and assessments will be done thanks to the support of the national will. As I conclude my remarks, once again, I would like to underscore that Turkey is always pro-liberties, democracy, justice, and development. And I would like to thank everyone who has helped Turkey on this path, and all the politicians who gave us support, all our intellectuals, and all our opinion leaders. On behalf of everyone, I'd like to thank them profoundly. The founder of our republic, Gazi Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, late Prime Minister Menderes, Özal, Türkeş, all these politicians worked tirelessly for the perpetuity of our state. I commemorate their memory, and hopefully one day we will join their ranks. Yes, right now we are on the island of democracy and liberties, and hopefully this island will forevermore be a symbol of this struggle, and for centuries to come, this island will play a very important role.
Yasada
And
duruşmalarında tutuklulara
during the
sizi
Yasa
buraya
Ada
tıkan
trials,
irade böyle
the
istiyor diyen
imprisoned
bir yargı anlayışından
suffered because of
15
the
Temmuz'da darbecilere
judiciary,
karşı
but on the night
derhal
of 15th
harekete
of
geçen
July,
bir yargı
the
anlayışına
public
ulaşmış
and the
olması
judiciary stood
gerçekten
against the
çok
coup
büyük bir
implementers,
ilerleme.
and this goes to show that as Turkey we have made great progress since the
Bu
Yasa Ada
vesileyle
trials.
15 Temmuz sonrası
With these
darbe yargılamalarını
sentiments, taking this
titizlikle
opportunity, I would
yürüten
like to
yargı
extend my
mensuplarımızın
gratitude
tamamını
to the
tebrik
members of
ediyorum.
the judiciary who
Bu
were
davalarda
instrumental
fedakarca
in
görev üstlenen
in
avukatlarımıza da
overseeing the trials
teşekkürlerimi
of the
sunuyorum.
perpetrators of the 15th of
Baro
15th of
tartışmaları
July coup
ve
attempt.
teröre verilen
And
destekler
yes,
sebebiyle son
there are some
günlerde
debates
sıkça
regarding bar
tartışma konusu
associations
olan
and support
avukatlarımızın
that is
tahir
given
ekseriyetinin
to
ülkesine,
to terrorists, but the
milletine,
vast majority of
hakka,
our
hukuka,
lawyers are pro
samimiyete
our
bağlı
nation,
olduğunu
pro
da
our principles,
İnşallah.
and
İnşallah bu
and
anlayıştaki
inshallah this
avukatlarımızın
understanding will
barolarda
prevail in the
ve diğer
future,
sivil
and
toplum
such
faaliyetlerinde
lawyers'
çok daha
voices
aktif hale
will be
gelmeleriyle
heard
yargının tüm
um,
unsurlarının
at a
milletimiz
bigger
nezdinde
capacity
itibarı
all
ve
across the
güvenilirliği daha da
nation,
artacak.
thereby
Sizlere
increasing the
bir kez daha
reputation of
sevgiyle,
that profession.
saygıyla
Once again, I greet you all
selamlıyorum.
with my deepest
Geleceğimiz
regards.
aydınlık
May
olsun
our
inşallah.
future be bright, inshallah. Thank you very
Sayın
much indeed.
Cumhurbaşkanım, efendim hitaplarınız için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Zat-ı devletlerini yüksek müsaadeleriyle aile fotoğrafı seremonisi için bir müddet daha sahnede misafir etmek isteriz efendim. Sayın Cumhurbaşkanımıza refakat etmek üzere Sayın Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi Başkanımızı, Sayın Cumhurbaşkanı Yardımcımızı, Sayın MHP Genel Başkanı, Sayın Tansu Çiller'i, Sayın Bakanlarımızı, Sayın Kuzey Makedonya Anayasa Mahkemesi Başkanı, Sayın Danıştay